Welcome to our house, the House of Fi. At the House of Fi, we are all about achieving financial independence for families. Wherever you are in your financial independence journey, we want our house to be a place where you can learn and get inspired. If you are a parent on the journey to Fi, then come on in. We're glad that you're here. Here are your hosts, Wendy and Tamika.
Hey everyone, before we get into the show, I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things. If you have not joined our private Facebook group, we would love to have you. It's just a great way for us to connect with you guys on another level. Also, we want to hear from you. On our website, if you click on over to houseoffi.com, over on the right-hand side, there's a little send voicemail button. You can click that and you can send us a quick recording. We listen to every single one. It's a great way for us to not just get feedback from you, but that's how we get some of our ideas for new shows. It's just a really great way for us to hear from you. And then finally, we'd love for you to join our money challenge. It's a 7-step challenge over the course of 21 days where we help you just lay your money foundation. It's absolutely free. We put a lot of work into it. It's a great course, and we'd love to get you all started on the right track to financial independence. Finally, we just wrapped up 5 episodes of FinCon Fridays, and these Friday episodes have just been a huge success, so we are going to be continuing them. Now, if you haven't noticed, the last few episodes that we've done for our Wednesday show have been all about the side hustle. And you know that Tamika and I are both all about ways of finding more income to add to your budget. So what we're going to be trying out, see if you guys like it, is we're going to be spotlighting the side hustle on Fridays. So stay tuned this coming Friday where we will have our first spotlight. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll have to tune in, but we look forward to having you come back and listen in on Friday. But for now, let's turn it back over to Tamika for this week's awesome show.
Welcome to another episode, House of Fi family. Today's guest has such an interesting story, one that we don't usually have the chance to hear. You all know that I'm a big supporter of the side hustle. I have my own side income, and in the past, I used side hustling to help pay off my debt. In my experience, I was able to balance multiple jobs openly with my employers. Our guest today, Tela Holcomb, owner of Trade Your 9 to 5, is a stocks and options trader, investor, and serial entrepreneur. She's joining us to speak about how she was actually laid off from her primary job once they found out about her side hustle. In today's episode, we will talk about whether or not you should let your primary job know about your side hustle, how to protect yourself financially when you're beginning to hustle, how to bounce back if you end up losing your job, and finally, how Tela was forced to recognize an obvious business opportunity even though it wasn't the business she was laid off for. With so much to learn, let's get to the show. Welcome, Tela.
Hey, ladies. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today.
Great. And we also have Wendy. Wendy, how are you doing?
I'm good. Happy New Year, everyone.
Tela, we often begin our show by asking our guests about their money story growing up. Have you always been a side hustler? And what are some of your earliest money memories?
I wouldn't say I've always been a side hustler, but I've always been a move up, see how, a growth type, like what's the next step? How do I get to the next level? I always talk about my earliest money memory being my mom making me learn how to balance her checkbook and write out the bills when I was like 15. And I really didn't want to do that. What 15-year-old does, but that was something that she made me do. And ever since then, like I've had this, I don't know, just this drive to like track my money. Where is it going? I remember writing down like on a sheet of paper how many quarters I had and tallying up like all my total of change and stuff. And then I remember getting a job as a teenager at a local hotel, doing the breakfast bar. And I always saw the college student at the front desk. And I was like, how do I learn how to do that? So I kind of bartered with her because she, like I said, was a college student. So I would tell her on the weekends where it was really slow that if she taught me how to do what she was doing, I could help her out and she could do her homework. So I was able to like work my way up to a front desk job and more income. And so that's just always kind of been my nature, is like, okay, how do I get to the next level of whatever I was doing?
That's so cool. So did you end up staying at the hotel and did you move up?
Yes. Well, I just moved up to the front desk for a few years. And then when I graduated high school, I went off to the military.
That's actually a really interesting point that you make. I have a feeling that in the rest of the episode, we're going to see that when you are in a situation where other people would normally be limited, that you might be the type of person who will cross those limits or maybe not even see the boundaries of those limits and therefore reach for higher positions or even other experiences. So can you, is that, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that is definitely me. I always seem to take it as like a challenge to make it happen. That's always just a challenge to me. So, and I'm always up for the challenge.
You mentioned that you joined the military. Was that part of a plan, or was that how did that decision come about? And was that part of your financial journey?
Wendy, that was not part of the plan. Up until, I want to say, starting in 10th grade, like I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to Florida State University's law school. I would go on their website and I would download the application to attend their school. And I was just like, that was my plan. And then halfway through senior year, I told them, I was like, I'm not going to college. I'm going to join the military. She's like, what? Wait a minute. Like, because I had been planning and dreaming about this for years. And what happened was I saw the people graduating, the years before me, and they would go off to college for maybe like a year and come back. And then I just felt like they were just stuck. They came back and they were just stuck doing nothing and and I'm from a small town. And I was just like, I can't fathom like being stuck here. Like, I feel like there's nothing here. There's got to be more out there. And I felt like by seeing them go off to college and come back, I felt like it was too easy to give up, right? That's just too easy for you to say, okay, this is hard. I'm going to just go back home. And, you don't make anything of yourself. And so I was like, I need something that I can't walk away from. Like, I'm not allowed to walk away from, right? So I was like, that's the military. There's no way I can give up on that. I at least have to commit 4 years to it before I say I don't want to do it anymore. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to the military. And my mom was like, what are you talking about?
Right. Did it end up being a good decision for you? Did it help hindsight is always 2020, but did it help you go or get you on the path that you eventually did want to go?
I feel like it was the direction I needed to go in. Going to law school and all that didn't happen. So I would say it didn't lead me down the path that I was wanting to go to, but what I wanted to do ended up changing because of it. And so I still feel like it's one of the best decisions I made. My daughter wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone in the military, and different things like that. So I feel like it definitely happened for a reason. But what I originally thought I wanted to do, like, I mean, as we'll unfold, the path and things that I thought I should be doing, the world had a way of telling me like, nope, you should actually be on this path, not that one.
So what was next for you? How long did you stay in? And then what was after that?
So I stayed in for five and a half years. I didn't do 6. I stayed in for 5.5 years and got out for medical reasons. And then from there, I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was still I'm not moving back home. Like, I'm not going back home. I'll figure it out. And a couple of the guys that I used to work with, they were government contractors at that time. So they were doing the same job that we were doing in the military, but just in civilian clothes, regular clothes. And they were like, hey, you should just come get a job with us. It's obvious that you know what you're doing. You were just doing it last week. So I applied for a job and got hired there. And for the next, like 9 years, I was a government contractor. So pretty much doing the same job I was doing in the military, just doing it for a civilian company for the military.
So I didn't realize that you were there for such a long time. What about that position led you to eventually starting the side hustle?
Government contracts change very often. And I was on the contract, or the position that I was in, it was 1 year contract. So every year we were kind of in limbo, and the government was in that phase of lowest cost possible. And so each new company that came in each year and won the contract, they won it for less money, which meant our pay got cut every time. And the way things were being ran, like efficiency wise, we weren't working for companies that were local. They were like out of state. So they were so out of touch of what was going on, and just seeing that year after year, and how my coworkers were feeling about, and what we were like, the anxiety and stuff like that. I was like, what if I started a company to do this, to run this contract? Like, I've been here for so many years. I know how this works. Like, what if I started my own government contracting business and eventually come after this one, and like, we could run this so much better than what's going on, right now. And I would have a better idea of, because I was an employee, I understand what's going on. And so that's really what started my side hustle. So I started, a government contracting business while still working as a government contractor. I tried to be careful, though, to not go after contracts that my current employer was pursuing, because you can look and see who's pursuing what contracts and putting in bids for what. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stay away from this arena. And then maybe eventually, maybe I can partner with my current employer, because they know my work ethic. So, working with me as a business, maybe they'll be open to that. So that's really what started the side hustle, was wanting to put out a company and service that not only served its customer, but also but not at the neglect of its employees, you know what I mean? And that wasn't just about the money that was involved. So that's really what made me do it.
So this is not something that, I just in case listeners are wondering, why would she go after the same business that she's in? Is there a non-disclosure, non-compete? I have a friend who actually has done the exact same thing. And in his industry, it is something that once you get to a certain point and you've made a certain amount of money, that it is kind of expected that you may go out on your own if that's something that you're interested in. So it's not unheard of where a government contractor would open their own government contracting business. But, can you tell us a little bit about how your specific company responded to this, to you having this side business that was similar to theirs?
So they came to me one day and said that they saw it was a conflict of interest, because I knew so much about the area that they were in, even though I wasn't pursuing contracts within the same arena as them. They saw me as a conflict of interest, because they were like, you could very well turn around and just compete with us and nothing's, stopping you. So they gave me an ultimatum. They were like, you can either quit or we can fire you. And so I was thinking about unemployment. And so I said, you're really going to have to fire me on this point, because I'm not quitting. And so that's how it ended up. They fired me that day. It was like, I was heartbroken, because I had put in years and time, and I thought I was respecting them by not pursuing anything in their space. But I completely understand their decision as a business owner. But yeah, it was still devastating for me.
any type of firing is devastating. It's just, it's rejection, and you forget that they are a business and they're not a person, and they have to look out for their bottom line. So was that the catalyst then? Was that the layoff that was the catalyst for the other business?
Yes. So before the firing happened, about the same time I started my government contracting business, right? Still working for the company, I got introduced to the stock market. Like, I knew about investing. I knew that, the stock market was there, but that's about all I knew. And I had a 401k that, I just kind of set it and forget it because I didn't know what was going on. So I had started learning about the stock market a couple of years before that, and investing and trading, but it wasn't my focus. I was like, okay, this is going to be another way for me to make money. This is cool. This is interesting. But my focus was the government contracting business. So then the firing happened, and I had to go home and tell my husband, like, we had just, gotten married, 4 or 5 months before that. So I had to go tell him, like, hey, I just, got fired from my job. So we had to sit down and have that discussion and figure out, like, okay, where are we at money wise, what's going out, what's coming in, and what to do next. And so we looked at it like, this is a great opportunity for me to really focus on the government contracting business. Now I have, all day to focus on it. We sat down and looked at our budget, and we've both been very good about saving money and not like getting a whole bunch of debt. So we looked at our savings and we're like, okay, we can pay our house off, we can pay, car off, and let's do that, and we should be good. So we paid, quite a bit off. And I just focused on the stock market, or it's not the stock market, the government contracting business. And a few months went by, my husband's like, you should probably focus on the stock market business, because like you're actually making some really good money there at times, to the point where I was making what my paycheck was at the previous job. And so I was like, no, the government contracting is where it is. I just know this is going to happen. I'm just going to focus on this, right? I was just so adamant, like, especially because I got fired because of it. It just had to work out. Like, I refused to let it not work out.
Right.
But, and I feel like, when we've had to, I guess, kind of suffer for something that we were committing time to, we almost don't know when to walk away from it and call it, like, okay, this is done. But, he sat me down again and was like, Tela, like, look at how much you're making. Like, this is where you need to focus on the stock market. So I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on the stock market. And it worked out. Like, it was amazing. Just making that money that I'd been making before, replacing my paycheck with it. And then after a while, our friends and people that we know were like, what are you doing? Can you teach me how to do that as well? And that's kind of, how the stock market business birthed. Like, people were asking me to teach them. I had a guy, he came to me with a check and said, how much is it to teach me? I was like,
wow.
I can't believe people want me to teach them this. So that's kind of how that business started.
So were you introduced to it by a course, or was it just something that how did you even know to even start looking into doing it?
Well, at that last job, there was a guy I worked with that was talking about the stock market. And I was like, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, how does this work? And he was talking about how he was going to retire, RV the country. And like, he had this grand plan, and he was dead set on like, this was how he was going to do it. And it was going to be because of the stock market. And so I just started asking him questions, and I asked him what he was reading. And I asked him like, what courses should I take? What should I be, how should I be learning about it? And so he pointed me to some stuff on YouTube. He pointed me to a couple of like seminars that I took. And I just started diving in and learning. I opened a practice account, and everything that I was reading and learning about, I just started trying to do it in that practice account and actually learning what I was doing.
So there are a couple of things that you said here that I thought were worth returning to. And one is, and it's not to say that there's a point besides, just it spoke to me. You talked about when you've committed to something that you've suffered for and you almost don't know when to walk away from it. I just love that you said that, and I don't know exactly how, why. I just think that, a lot of our listeners are going through certain things where they're either stuck at a job or they've been in a rut for a while. And there just comes a time where your eyes have to be opened and something is even right in front of your face, but you don't see it until, just you have that moment of awakening.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something else that you talked about, which was your coworker. And when he was talking about his plan to retire an RV across the country, was it causing you to think of some things in your life that you wanted to dream more about, like changes that you would want to make? Or were you just purely interested in the stocks, the process? So did it cause a dream where you wanted a lifestyle change, or was it, I just want to learn this skill?
It was about the lifestyle change that it could possibly give me. And it stems from like growing up, my mom was a single parent, and just seeing that she wasn't there for a lot of the school activities that we had because she was working 2 jobs trying to, provide for us. And I just always knew, like, I don't want that. I want to be able to have control over my time. She always told me to do better than she was able to do. And so I knew that being able to build financially and have more money stocked away or that can be passed down was something that I always wanted to do. So that was what really struck me about what he was saying. It's like, okay, this is another way for me to make that happen. This is another way for me to have control over my time and say, what life is going to look like for myself versus someone else telling me what life is going to look like. And so that's what I saw when he was talking with so much conviction about what life in freedom was going to look like for him. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see that for myself too. So I'm going to learn that as well as build this side hustle I'm working on. And then I'm going to be able to control my time and my life is going to be better, And so that's really what made me latch on and want to learn more.
So at this time, did you already have children and you wanted to be able to pass money down to them, build a legacy for them, and maybe stay with them a little more?
Yes. So I have a daughter.
So yes, we can both relate because between the two of us, we have a lot of children.
I know Wendy has 6, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, she does. 9 total between 9 between the two of us. So yeah, we've got a lot.
Bless you both, because 1 is a handful for me. So I can just imagine anything over than 1. I bless your heart.
After the first 1 or 2, it's
my friend said that. She has a couple of kids. She's like, after 3, you just don't even know the difference.
Right. Well, it helps because then they occupy each other, which is awesome. But it also creates conflict sometimes. So, most of the time it's good.
I did want to go back to one other thing that you said, because we speak to a lot of people in the FI and FIRE community, and there's a lot of emphasis on passive index funds, what you said you did in your retirement accounts previously. But there is some value. I do have some friends who also have money on the side that they invest or they sell and trade and everything. And I liked the fact that you said that you opened a practice account and implemented and practiced those strategies before going out and losing money or, doing it for real. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And maybe is that something that you recommend for other people to do before they get started?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the students in my Trade and I program, like I always have them start out with create a practice account. Do not get out there with your real money because you're still learning, how to do everything. And there's a bit of emotion in it too. So that by opening a practice account, I was able to not only learn how to trade and invest, how the market worked, what it looked like to buy and sell, what does it look like when I'm making money, losing money, but then I also learned things about myself. Do I get fearful? Do I get greedy? And what can I do to kind of combat those emotions when they start to rise, right? And just learn how to create a financial plan that helps me stay in line and safeguard my money. So like I always recommend doing that. My favorite place to set that up is TD Ameritrade. They have a practice account option. And so I always recommend that because it's also going to take the fear out of it. That's really the biggest thing when we're getting started in it makes it scary is because you don't know what you're doing yet. And you do have that fear of losing money. And it might be money that you can't afford to lose right now. And so by using a practice account, you're able to get in that learning experience without the risk of losing your hard-earned money.
What sort of time investment would you suggest for someone to use a practice account? Is that something that like, they should do daily? They should do a couple hours a day? Like what sort of time investment do you think is appropriate?
I think you should spend a few hours a week learning and clicking around and kind of just learning the platform and studying, stocks and things like that, because you're the more you're involved in learning it, the quicker your learning experience is going to be. So there's a saying that I've seen that like consistency is what gets you to proficiency, and so the more that you're in it and the more often you're in it, the better and the quicker you're going to learn. For me, I almost treated it like it was a college class, like so I was doing something all the time. Like once I saw, okay, wow, I am making some money from this, I'm going to focus on it. Like I always had a book or a stock chart with me, studying it. At the doctor's office, I'd pull it out and I'd read or look at a stock chart and do some studying. Sitting outside watching my daughter play, I would sit there and have something to learn with. So I feel like the more time you can put into it, the better. But it doesn't have to be like it's a full-time job. Like I don't day trade, so that's why like I don't think it has to be a daily thing and treat it like a full-time job. But if you can put a few hours a week to it, like 4 hours a week, that would be great.
So for our listeners who have zero baseline of knowledge, what is a day trader?
Yeah. So day trading is where you're buying and selling quite a few times a day. So you just buy and sell same day. They don't keep a stock or anything like that overnight, meaning buy it today, sell it tomorrow or the next day. So that would be a day trader. I am what you call a swing trader. And I also invest, but for the trading side, I'm a swing trader. And that means I buy today and I sell in a couple of days to weeks to months. So that means I'm just holding it for a little while longer. But I also have a separate account where I do long-term investing. And that for that account in those stocks, I'm holding those for years. So, yeah.
I know that, Wendy and I were talking about this earlier, and it's always so interesting to me. I've started, I remember a few years ago, I bought a book on options, and then I was like, I don't know about this. Like, what is this, a call and a put? But, are there certain individuals that you think are, should, where this would be an option for them, and then others where you think this type of business would not be an option for them? This type of activity would not be an option for them?
I would say if you don't have the time to commit to it, although I'm not day trading, meaning I'm not spending hours on it every single day, but if you don't have the time to commit to, the learning process, and the active monitoring of your investments, I would say then this probably isn't for you. The trading side isn't for you. I would also say if you are in a position where you may need to increase your income, maybe you don't have the funds that you can set aside for trading or investing, I would say that trading probably isn't for you. That was something I did once I started learning. Is I put an allotment or a deduction for my account into a savings account. So I was putting away like $100 a month, and I said, okay, once I'm out of this practice account, I'll have money set aside that I can start, investing with, and I'll be confident because I've had time to practice. So I feel like if you don't have it in your budget, then maybe this isn't for you. Right now would be the time to evaluate your budget, figure out where you can cut back on maybe expenses, or how can you increase your income so that you can get ahead and then start investing. Because I think the investing side, everyone should be doing. Everybody should be doing that because you got to think about the 60-year-old you. Most of us don't want to work until we're 60, 70, years old. And by building an investment, long-term investment, that will help you to not have to do that. But the trading side, I would say, if you have the budget for it and if you have the time to commit to it.
And so what I'm hearing is that this shouldn't be for someone who is going to look at it as like gambling, or that if all you have is your rent, you definitely don't want to be putting your rent in here as like a learning tool, or thinking that you're going to double your rent money in 2-3 days a week, whatever time.
Exactly.
You need to be responsible. You need to, make sure that your retirement accounts are taken care of. And then, if you've got it in your budget and it's extra and it's not taken away from your household, and you've practiced and you know what you're doing, like,
yes.
Let's check off all these boxes first, and then consider this might be something for you to consider.
Yes. Like you can start with a practice account. Anybody can start with a practice account, but as far as using your real money, yes, please check all of those boxes first.
So what were some of the things that you learned about yourself emotionally? Because, ultimately, if you're being responsible with your money and you have extra money on the side and you want to do this, then it's an option. It's something that people are very successful doing and that others maybe aren't as successful doing. You took a long time to practice. So what were some of those things that you learned about yourself emotionally in terms of, you mentioned greed, you mentioned, I can't remember what else you said. Can you take us through some of those things and then how you mitigate against those?
Yeah, absolutely. I took like you said, I took a long time to practice. I practiced for 8 months. And a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, oh gosh, that's a long time. Like, I don't want to have to wait that long. But for me, it was about, again, like replacing my job. I wanted to be a skill set. So it's like I said, going to college or learning another skill set. Like I put the time into it because I wanted it to work and I wanted to be good at it. Right. But along the way, I realized that I get greedy, and that's not a good thing. Because there'd be times I would be making money, like, yes, I was born for this. I know it. And I would hang on to a stock for way too long, just trying to make more and more money out of it. And then I would lose what I had made and then some. And I'm like, dang it, like, what am I doing wrong? And I would do it again and do it again. And then I had to realize, okay, I should have been okay with what I had made and called it a day, but I keep wanting more. So I had to learn how to curb that. And I decided, I learned how to make what they call a trading plan. So I am going to, think of it like a financial plan or a budget. I'm going to invest X amount into this stock. And when I've made X amount, I am going to sell. If I've lost this amount, I'm going to sell. And so that was my plan. And I had to learn to stick to that plan every single time. And when I felt myself getting greedy and wanting to hang on after I'd made some money, I was like, okay, nope, hurry up and sell and log off the computer. And just go and like enjoy that little high that I have for having, done so well, enjoy my family and remember like this is for long term. And if I don't stick to these plans, it won't be for long term because I'll lose everything. So yeah.
It's so impressive to me that you stuck to learning it for 8 months. I mean, I think we all have this just this desire to like, we learn something new and we want success right away, that, I'm going to learn this and I'm going to devour it, and, I'm going to know what I'm doing in, a few weeks or a month or whatever. So to have taken 8 months to really learn it and make sure you were doing well at it is just super impressive. You said something about if you don't have the time to actively monitor your accounts, then it's probably not for you. When you say that, do you have like set times that you go into it every single day? Is this an every single day sort of thing where you need a certain time, like every morning from like 8 to 10? Are you getting up according to when the market's open? Like, what does that mean?
For me, my routine is if I have active trades, I'm checking once or twice a day. Like if I'm looking to get in a trade, I'm checking just once or twice a day for about 15, 20 minutes. And then I just go about the rest of my day if I don't find a trade to get into. But other than that, I'm a few minutes a day, if anything. I also spend maybe, now that I'm better at it, now that I'm good at it, I spend like maybe an hour on the weekend looking for trades that I can do during the week. And so that's what cuts down on my time during the week. Then I only have to check for about 10 minutes twice a day to see if I'm getting, I use stock charts. So I use those to tell me whether it's a good time to buy or not. And so I'll check 10 minutes a day, those couple of stocks. If it's not showing that it's time to buy, then I log off and I wait till the next time for me to check that day. And if nothing, I log off. But once I'm in a trade, I automatically set it to sell. Like I set an automated sell. So once it hits the price that I want to sell it, that was another thing that helps me stay disciplined and not get greedy. Because once it hits my sell price, it'll automatically sell for me. And then I can just not worry about myself trying to stay in longer than I'm supposed to. But just a few minutes a day throughout the week and an hour at the most on the weekend.
Are you able to set it for if it reaches a certain low point as well?
Yeah, you can set that too.
So I love the fact that you have some automation, and I know definitely with my budgeting and with my financial plan, I have to build in that automation as well. So does that kind of take care of the bear versus bull market and any ups or downs because you're setting those prices? Or is that also something that you would need to think about if you were getting into this type of trading?
That's something else you would need to think about as well. You mentioned reading the book about options trading. That I love options trading because it does allow you to make money when stocks are going up and when stocks are going down. Whereas most people only understand and can wrap their brain around the fact of making money when stocks go up. So that's why I love options. So whether we're in a bear market, which means the market is on a downtrend or steadily headed downward, versus a bull market where the market is steadily headed upward, you're able to make money in both directions, and no matter how the market is doing. And so that's what I love about options trading. But the long-term buy and hold does have a place as well, and it is part of my strategy. But yeah, so I think it's definitely important for you to consider that and know that if you're only going to want to buy stocks and only going to want to make money when stocks go up, that when stocks are headed down, you're going to experience that fact of losing some value on your positions while you're waiting for the market or the stock to recover. I will say though, if you're buying stocks for long term, I always, like I mentioned earlier, remember that it's for years, right? This is a long-term investment. So don't let this day-to-day, month-to-month movement scare you out of any of your long-term investments. Try to, I mentioned a trading plan. Maybe you need an investment plan. Like, I bought this stock because I plan on holding on to it for 5 years, right? So take yourself back to that plan. Like, are you at that goal yet? No. Okay, then hang on to it. It's okay. This is for years kind of thing. But if you're going to want to also make money when stocks are going down, then options are definitely an avenue I'd recommend that you read up on and practice. Like, options are something you definitely don't want to jump out there without practicing them.
I was like, what is this book talking about? So maybe I will go back to that.
Yes, I do very well at putting it in plain English and relating it to stuff in everyday life that you're used to. So I would definitely check out some of my stuff if that options book was a little too much.
So Tela, I wanted to go back to where we left off in your story, in your money story, about, I believe you were at the point where people had actually started coming up to you and asking you to teach you how to do what you were doing. I'm curious about where were you personally at that point? Like, had you fully replaced your income? Kind of where you were personally, and then how did those people coming to you launch this other business that you now have, trading your 9 to 5?
Yeah, so at that point, I had been trading full time for myself for 2 years. I had closed the government contracting business, and I was just trading. And then I had people, like I said, coming to me, and I had been wanting something more. I was like, I've got this freedom, but like, I feel like there's more for me to be doing, right? I was already having that feeling. And so when people started coming to me about teaching them, I was like, wait a minute, I can turn this into, like, maybe that's what it is I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to now go spread this knowledge. I'm supposed to like go teach this to other people. So I was like, okay. So the first guy that, like I said, he said, hey, I'm going to write a check. Like, how much? So I had nothing. So I had to figure out a way to take everything that I knew and put it out, like, on paper or give it to someone else. So initially I went to his house for like 4 hours a day for about a week, teaching this to him and trying to like write out a plan of like what I'm going to tell him the next day. And I was like, I'm not going to change the world like this because, just that one-on-one in so many hours, I was like, I got to figure out a better way to deliver this and
it wasn't scalable for you.
No, it wasn't. So that's when I discovered the world of online courses. But for me, yeah, I had gotten to the point where I was the walking billboard for Trade Your 9 to 5. Like, it replaced my income. It was paying bills. It was, you know what I mean? It's building a legacy of wealth. We're completely debt free. We don't have to, like, yes, we still budget, but our focus isn't necessarily credit score anymore. Now it's net worth. So I was in the perfect place to now go and teach other people and show them what was possible. And so I'm so glad that, like I said, the world has a way of showing you what path you're supposed to be on. And I'm so glad, like, looking back, I'm glad I got fired, because then I probably wouldn't have discovered this. I probably wouldn't have gone down this road.
Your story is incredible. Like, it's so amazing. And I think that, you're very entrepreneurial, and both Tamika and I are as well. And I think, one of the tests that entrepreneurs have is, whether their product or service, if they're on the right track, is if there's a need or a want for it. And so, for you to have this person coming and saying, here's my check, like, you didn't have to go through that process that a lot of people have to go through of figuring out, okay, is this the right thing? You actually had someone like showing you, here, take my money.
Yes.
That's so great.
So it seems like you and your husband were on a really good financial footing. And earlier you said that you were very close to being debt free, and that when you lost your job, you paid off the car as well. At that time, did you pay off your mortgage, or did you leave a little bit of it? And what led you to that? Were you Dave Ramsey followers, or were you just were you just naturally financially responsible?
We were just naturally financially responsible. Like I guess I don't know. Maybe we didn't have a life to spend, spend our money on, all kinds of stuff. But we were great savers, right? And I know I read in your story, Tamika, that you're a great saver, right? And so we saved a lot of our money. And when we got into that position, we're like, okay, let's pay our house off. And we were looking at the different options and weighing the pros and cons of it, and always go back to like, what is it that we're trying to achieve? And like, my mom's saying do better than her. And it's like, we stopped and asked, like, what is it that people work 30, 40, 50, what do they work all these years for? And most of the time is they still have a mortgage. They're working to pay that mortgage off. They're working to pay these bills off. It's like, well, we have this money saved. If we could eliminate this right now in our 20s, me and my, late 20s, husband in his early 30s, like, why wouldn't we, and then we had advice from other people where they were like, don't do that. You've got the tax write-off and you've got this. And I pulled out the mortgage paperwork and I added up all the interest. And I'm like, this doesn't add up for me. It doesn't make sense to continue to pay on it. So we just kind of weighed, all the different options, and we're like, think about it, especially with the way the government contracts were working. You're in limbo every year on who the next company is going to be, what they're going to cut your pay to, things like that. And so it's like, if we paid off our house and say the contracts went away, the one thing they cannot take from us is our home, because it's ours. If anything, we can go to Walmart and be greeters to pay the light bill, right? So we were like, you know what, we're going to do it. And we also looked at who was giving us the advice. That's another thing. We looked at the circumstance of the people that were giving us advice saying don't pay things off. And they were actually individuals that they had retirement checks because they were prior military like us. And then they also had the paychecks from being the government contractor. And they were still having trouble, making ends meet, or, missing a paycheck was unfathomable for them, right? They wouldn't have been able to survive. And we're like, we don't want to be like that. And so it doesn't make sense for us to take financial advice from people who are in those situations. And so it's like, okay, we don't want to be like that. So let's do the opposite of them. And so that's why we were like, okay, we're going to pay off the house, because then we will always have somewhere to live. We always have somewhere to call home. We always have a piece of, property or something that's in our home, in our family, that's ours, and that can't be taken away.
I love it. Wendy spoke to Andy Hill when she was at FinCon, and he paid off his home with his wife. And I am so ready to do it this year. What was your strategy?
We didn't have a strategy. That's what's really, crazy about, like, I don't feel like, yes, our story is great, but there wasn't a strategy to it. We just had the money and we're just like, okay, let's just pay it off. There's no point in like not paying it off. So we didn't follow Dave Ramsey plan. We didn't eat oodles and noodles for a couple of years. We didn't do any of that. We just was like, okay, let's just put all the money, instead of throwing it all into savings, let's just go ahead and finish the mortgage off.
Well, that is awesome.
It is
Hopefully
awesome.
one day I'll be there.
You will.
All right, Tela. Well, we are just about out of time. We have a few questions that we ask all of our guests. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. And you may have already answered this one, but we'll see. What was one lesson you learned about money or finances, good or bad, growing up that you have carried over into your FIRE journey?
It would definitely have to be the budgeting and saving that my mom taught me. And I feel like because it because I had that down at a young age, I feel like it opened me up mentally for like, what's the next thing? And so when it came to someone mentioning investing didn't seem out of reach for me, because I wasn't like, well, I can't even make ends meet, or I don't even know how to, make a budget, or I need to figure out a budget before I can invest. But because she taught me that so early on, and I was used to budgeting and saving, that the next logical step was investing. So I feel like that's what actually, like put me into the FIRE journey.
And like, kudos to your mom for sitting you down and making you balance her checkbook and pay the bills. Like, your mom gets big time props for that. I think that's probably like, one of the best lessons you can give your younger children, young adults, is, how to actually pay the bills.
Well, my mom is definitely benefiting from the lessons that she taught me around finances this year. Actually, no, this year, we're in 2019 now.
Yeah.
Last year, for Mother's Day, I paid off my mother's house for her. And so,
what?
yes.
What an amazing gift to her. That is so awesome.
Yeah. I told her, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her, like literally, and just, knowing the things that I do. And so I told her, I was like, she can't work till she's 70 either. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it just, it just speaks to, because I know you talk about on your site, just this intergenerational wealth. And so not only are you providing for your daughter and her children going forward, but you've also reached back and brought your mother along as well, which is just amazing. I just love it.
Thank you.
All right. And so, do you have any favorite life hacks or other things that have made your life easier or that bring you joy?
A life hack. I would say more like for me, I'm not a big spender, but there are times where I'm like, oh, I want something. But my hack is to wait a week. And if it's still on my mind, then I'll go back and get it, because I'm kind of frugal. So I don't want to just impulse buy every time I see something. So that's kind of been a hack for me. It's just like, okay, if you can take a week or 2 weeks and you still want this item, or you still even think about it, then you can go back and get it.
No, that's definitely a good practice. Impulse buys are like the devil. And do you have anything that you're reading right now, or do you have a favorite read, and why?
I will say my favorite read has to be Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes.
So good. Such a good book. Oh my gosh.
Yes, especially saying yes to saying no. That I feel like that's very hard for me. And I've had to really practice it a lot. It's like, especially with starting the business, because my freedom and time with family has always been a priority, but I'm a blinders on, all in on whatever project I'm working on. And I have to step back and say, okay, wait, it shouldn't be that way. I now have to frame it to, how does this fit into my freedom? And so I started to make sure I structure and do my business in a way that it fits into my freedom, because that's priority, and along the way, I had to learn how to say yes to saying no to a lot of things.
I think learning how to say no to things that don't fit into, whatever it is you're currently focused on, whether that's spending more time with your family or building a business or whatever that is. But learning how to say no is really hard for a lot of people, but it can be so exhausting to say yes to everything all the time. And just recognizing that, maybe a no isn't a hard no. Maybe it's, no, this does not fit into my life right now, but let's talk again in 6 months and maybe we can work something out then.
Right.
So where can our listeners find you?
You can find me at telaholcomb.com, or on Facebook and Instagram or YouTube at Tela Holcomb.
Perfect. That's wonderful.
Fantastic, Taylor. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're definitely an inspiration, and I think our listeners will get a lot out of this show. Thank you again.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
Well, House of Five family, that brings this episode to a close. If you've liked what you've heard, please subscribe in iTunes, as well as any of the other platforms you've found us on. We're on just about all of them. Also, please leave us a written review. They help us to know what you're liking about the show, what we can do better. And for every 5 reviews we receive, that's written reviews, we will give away one of our favorite reads, and that is currently Kids' Money Habits by Amy Coit. It's a great book full of great information, both for parents and kids. Don't forget to check out our show notes on the webpage. There's always bonus information there that didn't make it to the show, and we strive to create good content on there. So please head on over to the website and check that out. Finally, you can find us on Facebook. You can either like our page or you can become part of our Facebook group. It's a private group, and in there we have ongoing discussions about each episode as well as other topics within the FI community. It's a way for us to get to know each other better and for Tamika and I to learn exactly what you want to hear more of or questions that you have that we can address with upcoming guests. Again, thank you for listening. Come back next week. We're glad you're here.